Shall we talk about his Dark Materials?
Uh-huh. Yes. Before we start this conversation,
Mm.
we are not up to date, as in me and Georgia are not up to date.
You're not up to date now.
So bear that in mind.
We'll bear that in mind. So you're one episode
But
behind,
we've
aren't
both
you?
read the books.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're one episode behind, I think. Yeah, we have both read the books. I'm a big fan of the books. I actually really like the last one. Everyone else seems to think it's a bit of a dud.
It's not great, is it?
I enjoyed it.
Okay.
It's not the best one,
No.
but oh well. So there's about 5,000 fundamentals we can do from this series alone because they have taken it upon themselves to change as much as humanly possible,
Yeah.
apparently.
Which is strange because, like, I mean, I watched the first series first, then I've gone and read all three books, and now we're coming to season 2. And I would have said season 1 was actually pretty close overall. Like, there's a couple of minor divergences we've covered, but it's basically there.
Yeah. And I mean, even the ones we did cover, as I was shouted at many, many times, and I have now read The Book of Dust, Part 1.
All right.
So the fundamentals I thought were there are not there in the first series. Well, some of them. But in series 2, what I reckon has happened is that Philip Pullman was he's an executive producer on the show. He wrote the books. And I think he had a lot more involvement in the first series. And then the second series, he's obviously taken a back seat a bit. And now they've just been like, hey, Philly P, can we mess up your story entirely? And he's like, yeah, dog, you do it. He's busy writing other books about stuff.
Yeah. Because I mean, we've mentioned before, like, I mean, I'm not sure we mentioned on the podcast. We've mentioned between ourselves before, like, the Subtle Knife, which is the second book that season 2 is based off, is very much it's the shortest book of the series, so it's fair enough that maybe
they did a bunch of it in the first series as well.
So I mean, you're not wrong, but they actually only did the first chapter of book 2 in season 1. They just made it really long, so that's kind of okay. That's what gets me is they've made the series shorter. It's only 7 episodes this time rather than 8, and like they could easily make it last 7 episodes quite easily, or have just reduced the episodes if they're struggling. But no, they're doing the Game of Thrones thing where they sort of set a number of episodes and then sort of stretch it in whatever direction to make it reach that anyway, instead of just planning it first and then choosing the number of episodes that will take. And I think that's the thing, they're just trying to pad this series out with just whatever they can come up with. But shall we get into specifics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on then.
Wait,
before we start, what do you think of Lin-Manuel Miranda as Lee Scorsby?
All the movies
we've
coming
got
out
some stuff is kicking off.
Oh yeah,
kicking off in the chat.
See in the corner of my eye, the chat is really like buzzing.
Yeah.
So, Lin-Manuel Miranda. I nearly got it wrong.
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
What are my thoughts on him?
Yeah, your thoughts on him as Lee Scorsby.
See, this is interesting because I saw series 1 first and then read the books. My influence of what I picture the characters as was like inflected by the series anyway. So for me, I feel he's really good as Lee Scorsby, but that's because he was my introduction to it. So there's some bias there, but I mean, I think he's good as Lee Scorsby. I think he really fits it. You know, I think he's got the demeanor, he's got the sort of the look, he's got the accent's really good, of course. Why is there controversy about LMM?
Yeah, I don't think he's that good.
No.
I think he's okay. He's serviceable, but one of the best parts of the film, The Golden Compass, was the guy who played Lee Scorsby was like the aeronaut. You know, he looked the part. And I can't remember the actor's name. I could look it up.
Research.
I can't be bothered. He plays other Ron in Parks and Recreation.
Oh,
If anyone cares about that.
right. Good show.
But he's so good. He's really, really good, and that's how I pictured him, as this older man. Because then he's got more of that fatherly figure towards Lyra, rather than Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's like, oh yes, I love her, and it's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
It's like you met her like one whole time.
That is a little bit weird. To be fair, in the book, it's a bit like that as well. He's sort of just like, I've met you once, but I love you. It's like, okay.
Sam Elliott
like that as well.
is the man's name.
Oh, Sam Elliott. Oh, Sam Elliott, who's done films I now can't think of, because of course I can't. But he's been, he's been in a lot of things, though. I think he's in Big Lebowski. Possibly. Or maybe not. Who knows? IMDb, but I'm not opening it up. Well, my computer might shit itself if I try to start any of the
he's
processes.
been in stuff.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of things, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think because he's got that almost like grandfatherly demeanor about him. I don't know, and he's just looks like, he really looks the part, and he acts the part, and he's like this. I don't know what you think about this, but I thought of Lee Scorsby as like, you know, more slow talking, thinks things through, wants to protect and help, rather than the Lin-Manuel Miranda, the fast talking, smart talking, shoots them up man, you know?
Well, I don't know. I've always pictured him as like, like a man of action, sort of like almost like sort of stumbled out of the Western. But again, I've had the HBO/BBC interpretation as my starting point, so maybe that's just how it's been instilled in me.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is quite a significant change with Lee Scorsby in season 2, which is they've added a scene. I guess this is spoilers if anyone's not up to date. Don't know how spoilers are going to work on a live podcast. Scroll forward to an imaginary time code. But anyway, there's a warning. But yeah, there's a scene now where Lee, having been captured, which alone is a change, by the Magisterium, meets with Mrs. Coulter, and they have a nice little chat, which never happens in the book. And not only that, she decides to set him free, which is also very out of character. So
yes, it is.
That's a thing.
Also, I've noticed about her character, she seems to just randomly appear wherever the script decides she's needed.
Yeah, I feel
it's not like she's traveling around. She just is like, oh, I'm here now because there's someone I need to intimidate.
Yeah, it seems like they've got Miss Coulter just like all-purpose, like sort of plot insulation. Just anywhere they've got something fine to fill, just put Mrs. Coulter in there. Just have her do something. I don't know. She's got such good screen presence.
Stick her in there. Why not?
Yeah,
She's
why
spooky.
not?
Let's get her in.
I've got an update on my opinion on Ruth Wilson as Miss Coulter, by the way, which is
go on.
So in the book, there's a big thing about how like Mrs. Coulter has this sort of speaks this sort of there's this sort of this not beauty to the way she speaks, but like she has this intoxicating quality to her voice, where like she sounds so sort of like sweet and lovely, which is sort of the trap of her. And I will say, and I sort of mentioned this before, but Ruth Wilson, as great as she is as a villain, sounds too evil. She never doesn't sound malevolent.
She does, doesn't she?
Which slightly contradicts that whole concept. Other than that, she's brilliant. Like literally the moment she's on screen, like
funny, isn't she?
Yeah. But that's the thing, like I remember when she walked in the first episode, I was like, the villain's here because she's speaking in an evil voice.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the chat is literally about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes behind.
Oh man, is it that bad?
Just by the way,
Okay.
it's pretty bad.
We'll do this at your house next week with your thick
Yeah,
internet connection.
that's fine.
How are we doing for time,
Thick
actually?
boy internet, hopefully.
Well, have we got anything else to
We've got
say
20
about
minutes left.
his Dark Materials?
Well, there's a bunch of random, bits they've added in, and taken. Well, they haven't taken anything out. They've just added a bunch of random crap, haven't they?
Yes, I think everything's still in there that was in the book. Oh, the other big thing is they've just so the Magisterium's just randomly firebombed all the witches for no apparent reason. I mean, it's not in character,
completely random.
Literally doesn't happen in the books, and it's this massive plot point that's just there to fill time.
Yeah.
And I guess it's to establish the Magisterium as more of a threat early on, but
also they're doing this weird thing. Well, they're doing this thing about having the new cardinal be elected, and it's like,
yes,
the bald bloke wants to be the new cardinal,
which also is definitely not in the books.
But it's making him weirdly like sympathetic in a way, because it's like, it's trying to make you like want him to be the cardinal, but isn't he technically supposed to be like one of the main bad guys?
Yeah.
It's like, why are you wanting us to root for him? And it's like, you're not supposed to like the other guy who wants to be the cardinal because he's a dick. It's like, isn't this cardinal also a dick?
We're splitting the dicks here.
We are splitting the dicks.
And there's our episode title, ladies and gentlemen. Actually,
Well,
that does bring me on to a more fundamental, actually, which was in first episode, maybe second episode. But so, in the books, one of the witches is captured by the Magisterium and tortured for information. And Serafina Pekkala, like the lead witch, has to go in and assassinate her, so spare her from the torture and save the information. The series does this as well, but also she just goes on a killing spree. I mean, to be fair, Ruta Scardi's there as well for some reason, but they just go on a killing spree and murder the cardinal of the Magisterium, which is a big deal, because I think a big part of in the book was they didn't ever actively antagonize the Magisterium. They just existed, only meddling in their own affairs, and the Magisterium doesn't stand for that. But now they've actively like fought against them and like killed their leader. Like, I mean, you can't blame them for fighting back. But it's like, oh no, they firebombed our land.
Yeah,
like, well,
it's very very weird.
But this is
you did assassinate their leader.
Yeah, but I think this is the weird thing, is there's a lot of changes which don't need to be changed. We're fine as they are, but seem to have been done to pad out the runtime, but at the expense of the sort of the point of the characters and lore and just general story. And there's one of those from this most recent episode, which we won't mention because you and George aren't technically up to date yet. But
which you won't. Yes, don't talk about, please.
No. But there's more of that in there, and that particularly irked me. But we'll talk about that another time. Oh,
I wonder how they're going to little people.
Oh, the Galavespians.
The Galavespians.
I'm guessing they'll just shoot them on a green screen and then just scale them down and overlay them on the image. Probably.
There's a lot of stuff in the last book that works very well literarily. That is going to look really fucking weird on screen.
Did somebody say Malatha?
Yeah. That all of Mary Malone's story in the third book is just going to look super weird.
Yeah. There was actually something I was going to say about the cave. Oh yeah, I remember. So the cave being the big supercomputer Mary has that talks to dust. So
yes,
there's a whole thing, and it is in the series, about the whole dark matter research thing is desperately underfunded. There's only 2 of us, and we need all the money. Yeah. And then they've got a massive fucking James Bond supercomputer in their lab, which in this giant SCP container, and it's like, what? How are you
Well, that's the
finding
thing.
that?
Like, that's what. 'Cause, I mean, I know it doesn't ever explicitly say when it's set in the
Mm,
book, but I always pictured it being set in like the 50s, 60s, which is why like this computer was such a big deal because they were like the huge machines that have those absolute massive reels that are only like 4 megabytes of data
yeah.
or whatever, and that's what I was picturing in my head with this like huge ancient computer, and like why they're running out of money is because they're not getting any results, and this thing is so massive and enormous, and it takes so long to do anything. It's like
And it's
that's what
drawing
I
a
always
whole
pictured
two
in my
watts of
head.
power a
But then
day, and it just can't stand it.
yeah, whoa. So like obviously then the problem of them having it set in now, sort of, even though Paddington was in the cinema, which
Yeah, which is
yeah,
weird because
weird.
it's present day, but not actually present day, and it seems like a really arbitrary point to drive it at. But I don't know.
Yeah. Um, it's everything looks too modern. I don't know.
See, I sort of assumed Will's London or Oxford even was based in the time the book was written, which was like late 90s. Um, but so I read
Yeah,
the
the
the cave as
90s.
being basically this like jury rigged like just scrap of electronics on a desk. Like someone just like got a load of like old 90s circuit boards and just like jammed them together and attached a monitor like and just this mess of cables on a desk somewhere, and it was all very sort of
Mm.
hodgepodge. So to have this like slick, clean, sort of silver machine and this like impenetrable glass chamber just seems very incongruous to that. Because also she like
Yeah, and they only
uh,
show it like 2 times. The rest of it's just on this little monitor.
yeah. Also, well, this is another smaller change, and one that maybe is more justified. Um, but in the book, Mary has to go and write a program which translates the cave's output into like text, which she somehow programs in the space of a night. Let alone how does she do that at all without any
Yeah,
like understanding? But she's done that in a night. That's fine. It's not like programming takes absolutely ages or anything. Uh, but in the series, it just sort of talks to her with 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 voice. Even when she's not wearing the little things on her head, it
yeah.
still sort of just says stuff. Which I don't know how to feel about that.
All right. I don't know. Should we move on because we've
Let's
slagged
move
it
on.
off for
Yeah.
quite a while?